Welcome, everyone, to our Packers News Camp Chat, virtually alongside Ryan Wood. I am Olivia Reiner. In an alternate universe, tomorrow would have been the Packers' first preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals. However, because of the coronavirus pandemic, the NFL schedule has shifted around quite a bit. Instead, the Packers will begin phase 2 of training camp tomorrow, starting with their first unpadded practice. Before we get into that, I want to remind you can be a part of our conversation. Head down into the comment section of either Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, wherever you're watching this, and we will answer some of your questions today. We're going to have a little chat about some of the things that you should be keeping an eye on in training camp as we're sharing things live on the ground. We will be there starting tomorrow, so should be pretty exciting. Ryan, my eyes will be along the right side of the offensive line, specifically at right tackle. The Packers added right tackle Rick Wagner this offseason after allowing veteran tackle Brian Bulaga to explore free agency. He ultimately settled with the Los Angeles Chargers. Wagner is certainly an option for the Packers at right tackle. However, head coach Matt LaFleur has not committed to him being the surefire starter at the position. Ryan, which Packers are most likely to be in play for the position at right tackle?
I think all eyes are going to be at that right side of the offensive line. That's certainly one of the most pressing areas I want to look at. And what's going to be really telling, Olivia, is whether or not Billy Turner gets any reps there because at right tackle. Because a year ago, when he was brought in as a free agent, he was signed to play right guard, and he was exclusively at right guard. With Brian Bulaga at right tackle, Billy Turner was not rotating in with the ones at right tackle. He was at right guard. Rick Wagner is going to get the right tackle reps, and it would not be a surprise to anybody if he was the first to get those right tackle reps when they are with the ones. But if the difference would be from last year to this year is if Billy Turner's also getting reps there and he's rotating in. If he's not, maybe that's a sign that they're really feeling good about Rick Wagner at right tackle. You know, he's played several years at the position. He's been a longtime starter in this league. They signed him to a 2-year, $11 million contract. So that's starter money. I mean, it's money that you give a guy that you expect to come in and play that position. But it's not the kind of money where it's his job right off the bat. So I do think Matt LaFleur's insistence that there is competition on the offensive line everywhere. They're looking for the combination of the best five. Does open the door to that possibility. Now we'll finally get to see that on the field. And I'll be very curious if we see some Billy Turner at right tackle.
Will it be Wagner? Will it be Turner? If it is Turner, who's going to be sliding in to that right guard position? There's a lot of questions surrounding the offensive line that we will be keeping our eyes on heading in to these early training camp practices. Let's move behind the offensive line and take a look at the quarterback. The Packers' decision to draft rookie quarterback Jordan Love in the first round of this year's draft showed that they view him as the potential successor somewhere down the line to quarterback Aaron Rodgers. However, right now, the big question is he capable of backing up Aaron Rodgers this season? With no rookie camp or live preseason game reps, the Packers may have to turn to last year's backup, Tim Boyle, at that number 2 position. How are the Packers going to balance Love and Boyle through training camp?
It's a great question. You know, Jordan Love's going to get a lot of reps because he has to. This is his time to develop. There's no preseason games for him. He didn't get any rookie orientation. He got a virtual offseason and a very truncated training camp. I mean, consider this, Olivia. A year ago tomorrow was the Packers' second preseason game in Baltimore. That's where they are in their calendar. And tomorrow, of course, is going to be their first practice. So it's just such a short window of opportunity because once the regular season starts, it's all about Aaron Rodgers and getting ready for the offense, ready for that game plan that week. And that's the focus. You don't get a lot of backup time with the ones during the regular season. This is the time to be able to really develop. So Jordan Love's going to get a lot of reps. Tim Boyle's a guy that has a full year ahead of him in Matt LaFleur's system. He's been here going into his third year under Brian Gutekunst's watchful eye. And they know more about Tim Boyle. So I do think that he's going to get fewer reps. The question, though, how much does he rotate in? And are the plans for him to be on the 53 for 2 reasons? One, added protection against COVID-19. But 2, just the fact that he has that year in the system. And he's a guy that if Aaron Rodgers rolls an ankle like he did a couple years ago, right? The knee a couple years ago in the opener against Chicago. If there's an injury like that, that's not a long-term injury, but an injury where you need a guy to come in and play some snaps in a regular season game, week 1, week 2, week 3, Tim Boyle is going to have that institutional knowledge, that foundation in this playbook that Jordan Love, it's just hard to see him being able to replicate. So how do they balance that? It's going to be really interesting. And Jordan Love's got to get those reps. There's no question about that. But they got to also have Tim Boyle perhaps ready to play if he's needed.
Will it be Boyle? Will it be Love? It's a good question. It's something that we'll have to see how that pans out going into training camp. Moving on to the defensive side of things, when cornerback Tramon Williams left, essentially, he became a free agent. He still is a free agent. It left a pretty big hole in the Packers secondary, specifically at nickel corner. The Packers have a couple of candidates at the position, including cornerbacks Josh Jackson and Chandon Sullivan. Sullivan was a 2018 undrafted free agent signed by the Packers in 2019. Jackson, on the other hand, was a second-round pick in the 2018 draft. It's an interesting dynamic there between the two of those. Sullivan jumped ahead of Jackson in the depth chart last season. We saw Sullivan take about 30% of the defensive snaps, while Jackson only took about 10. Who's most likely to earn that role coming out of camp?
Kevin King basically named Chandon Sullivan the starting nickel corner today. So that gives you any indication of what they think on the team. Chandon Sullivan played pretty well last year, and I do think that he's most likely to get the first crack at being that slot corner. The question to me is what happens to Josh Jackson, because he was drafted a second-round pick out of Iowa after having 8 interceptions and a couple of touchdowns as a junior. He was drafted for this type of position, and maybe not necessarily the slot. But Jair Alexander can move to slot. You talk about the offensive line, the best combination of 5. It's kind of that way with the best combination of 3 corners when you go into that sub-package nickel look. Just get your best corners on the field. Is that Josh Jackson perhaps? And he played 700-some snaps as a rookie. He was not healthy last year, had injuries, and fell behind the depth chart. But he was drafted in the second round for a reason. I mean, this is a guy they want to have fill a role and step up and be a contributor. So, Jair Alexander also did say, Olivia, that he wouldn't mind stepping into the slot occasionally. So it's going to be interesting to see how those pieces fit. And again, I think it's very much like the offensive line. Your best combination of 5 there, your best combination of 3. Knowing 2 of those 3 are going to be Jair Alexander and Kevin King. But where are they most of the time? Where are they taking the reps? That'll be the question with them.
That's a big opportunity there in the secondary for any of those younger, less experienced players to show up, and potentially take over a starting position. We'll see who exactly that might be. So if you have any other interest in looking at what some of the big key concepts, ideas to keep an eye on heading into training camp, you can head over to PackersNews.com. Ryan wrote a really informative piece, and you can look at a few of the other items that he thinks that our lovely readers should keep an eye on heading into training camp. With that, let's move on to some of the things that are on your mind out there. We'll start with Deb. Deb says, with Devin Funchess opting out, how strong is the Packers receiving core? Deb doesn't see any changes, and they need a spark there. There are not a whole lot of changes. The Packers added 2 receivers over the last few days in wide receiver Malik Turner and also Travis Fulgham, 2 players that are certainly, I would deem them to be long shots to make the roster just in general. However, they are adding a couple of new fresh faces to the receiving room. Ryan, who is going to step up and fill in the shoes of whatever Devin Funchess' role, whatever he would have done for this team this season?
It might be, honestly, Olivia, it might be a little presumptuous to say that someone is going to fill up and step into that role. We don't know yet. Someone's got to, and they sure hope someone does. I think the first person to get the shot is going to be Allen Lazard. He was the second leading receiver last year with 477 yards. You might notice, if you're any good at math, that's fewer than 500. They had one 500-yard receiver last year. The first time the Packers have ever played a 16-game schedule and not had multiple 500-yard receivers. That's the lack of depth that they're returning this year. But Allen Lazard was the cream of the crop behind Devontae Adams. He third down, time and time again, he was the guy making plays. He had 2 of the signature touchdowns of the season in the finale against Detroit, the first game against Detroit. 2 big plays in those games. So he was a big play guy, even though he didn't have 500 yards. He did come on late after being released out of camp and put on the practice squad. He came on late on the active roster and was a big play guy. The big intrigue, I think, is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He lost his confidence last year. It's not the first time a Packers receiver has done that. All he's got to do is look in the same room and see Davante Adams and know that happened to him as a second-year guy. And Davante Adams obviously rebounded to become one of the best receivers in the league. So he's got a guy that has been through that, and the Packers are wanting Marquez Valdez-Scantling to rebound in a very similar way. Talent-wise, Matt LaFleur said it himself. Marquez Valdez-Scantling's got the speed and the size to scare defenses. He's a big play threat whenever he's on the field. A lot of big plays, especially early in his career. And then the confidence matters got worse and worse as the season progressed last year. So can he rebound, and can Equanimeous St. Brown rebound from missing his second year because of being on IR? Very similar to MVS, EQ had a really promising rookie year. He made plays at the end of the Monday night game his rookie year in 18 against San Francisco, a game-winning catch on the right sideline. Impressive for a rookie, but then he didn't get the chance to build on that, so now that opportunity comes. I really look at those 3 guys. If the Packers are going to get production anywhere, it's almost got to be from Lazard, EQ, or MVS behind Davante Adams. So you start there, and if it doesn't work from there, you just go down the line.
The opportunity is certainly there. It's just on the players at this point to show that they are capable of rising to that occasion in games. They're going to have to show that somehow during training camp with no preseason. Thank you so much for your question, Deb. Let's move over to Southwest Florida Packers fan club. Hopefully the weather is nice in Southwest Florida. Usually we can't say it is in Green Bay. However, it's a pretty beautiful day out today. Gotta love the summertime. Southwest Florida Packers fan club says that their concern is at middle linebacker, or in Mike Pettine's defense, inside linebacker. I had this conversation yesterday with fellow Packers News reporter Jim Ozarski, and we pretty much were having the same conversation that we had last year about the inside linebacker position. Last year, the big question mark was who is going to play alongside now departed Blake Martinez, now who left the Packers in free agency, is now with the New York Giants. This year, it is who is going to be playing alongside Christian Kirksey. And even then, there's still some uncertainty about Christian Kirksey's ability to stay healthy through 16 games in a season. Ryan, who is going to play alongside Kirksey at inside linebacker?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you make the point, Olivia. There's a huge difference between Christian Kirksey and Blake Martinez, because Blake Martinez never left the field. So when I look at, and I wrote about this in today's training camp battles, to me, like, the entire defensive front is a battle, because they need a third defensive lineman behind Kenny Clark and Dean Lowry. They need a fourth outside linebacker behind the Smiths and Rashawn Gary. And then they need a second inside linebacker, but they might need any inside linebacker if Christian Kirksey can't stay on the field. So Christian Kirksey, if he stays on the field, he's played – this is his 7th season. He's the most experienced player on the Packers defense. Nobody else has 7 seasons in the league. That's a guy that they can count on from an experience standpoint, from just lining guys up and doing a lot of the Blake Martinez intangible things that he did a year ago in Mike Pettine's defense. You look at the other guys, though, Ty Summers kind of got a shout out from, I think it was Brian Gutekunst, as a guy that flashed well on special teams and might be someone that can contribute as a defensive player. Curtis Bolton looked like he was on his way to a roster spot last year before tearing his ACL. It's a tough go to come back and try to get over an injury like that. We'll see what he can do in a very abbreviated training camp. Kamal Martin, the 5th-round rookie, I mean, he's going to make the roster and probably, if nothing else, contribute on special teams. But can he, as a rookie, step in and play a lot of snaps defensively is something that remains to be seen. The guy, though, and I think you would agree, the guy that really is intriguing the most there as far as number 2 is Oren Burks. He was drafted in the 3rd round. He's got the athleticism, the size. You ever stand next to Oren Burks, I mean, he's almost built like a tight end. He's really, really tall, and he's got really, really long. He's got the mobility, the movement skills. He's a Vanderbilt grad. It's just a matter of being able to stay healthy for once and put it all together on the field, something he hasn't been able to do He was drafted in the 3rd round for this opportunity. It's his time. There's a couple guys on the roster, Montravius Adams being one, Josh Jackson being one. A couple guys on the roster is kind of now or never. This is the time to step up and seize an opportunity. This is that time for Oren Burks.
It is his opportunity to lose at this point. Whatever help they can get at inside linebacker, Mike Pettin will certainly be grateful. Let's stay kind of along a similar vein with Ivan's question here. And Ivan says, not too many new pieces in this defense for stopping the run. How are the Packers going to fix this? Changing concept, better discipline, or something else? Ryan, how valuable is continuity in this defense from last year to this year, heading into Mike Pettin's 3rd year in this system for the Packers defense when it comes to defending the run?
Well, it could be. They think that the deficiency is not so much talent as it is something that's within their own control, specifically gap integrity and guys sticking to their assignments and not getting out of their run lanes. And I think that if you look at the lack of depth on their depth chart, you can question some of the talent there. I mean, you're right. Not too many new pieces in the D for stopping the run is absolutely correct. And again, they need a 3rd defensive lineman to step up. They need a 4th outside linebacker. So you want at least to rotate 4. The Smiths are durable, but you don't want to play them 80, 90% of the snaps every game all the time. It's a long season. And then you need help on the 2nd level at inside linebacker. So I think it's questionable whether they have all the depth that they need in terms of their rotations. They've got to develop that. But if you watched last year, there were a lot of guys that were getting out of position. And there's a lot of star power on this defensive front too. Kenny Clark was a Pro Bowl. The Smiths are the Smiths. Nobody in the league, no pair of teammates in the league had as many sacks last year as their 25 and a half. So they've got the talent at the top of the depth chart. And those guys, everyone collectively, they need more gap integrity. They need fewer MEs, misassignments. And they've just got to be able to, not get outside themselves. That's what a lot of the guys talked about, is trying to do too much. And it's cliche, but I do think that there was something to that. There were guys trying to kind of hunt plays that didn't exist for them and not staying true to their assignment. If they feel like they can erase that and get on the same page, if they're able to do that, that does help the run defense.
They do not want to have any repeats of the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers when they gave up a lot of yardage on the ground. We will see if they are able to ward off any performances like that ever again heading into this season. Let us move on to Brian. Brian says he is a big Josh Jackson fan. Give him a chance. And he also says we can't let go, or we can let go Kevin King. We can let Kevin King go after his rookie contract is up. Are you reading this as we can or we cannot?
I think we can let go. Yes.
Okay. So then in that case, either way, I think it's certainly worth discussing. The Packers have a very long list of 2021 free agents. Kevin King is only one of the names on that list. Some of the others you may know are left tackle David Bakhtiari, defensive tackle Kenny Clark, running back Aaron Jones, center Corey Linsley. It's a pretty substantial list. Where does Kevin King fall on the priority list for the Packers?
There were 12 DBs last year with 5 picks in the league, and he was one of them. He's 6'3", runs a 4.43, 32-inch arms. Not a lot of guys with that type of size and length and speed. I get it. You watched Kevin King last year, and it could be infuriating at times if you're a fan, because he was so good for such long stretches, and then he gave up a big play. And Kevin King talked about that today, how he needs more consistency. He needs to avoid those lapses, 1 or 2 plays a game where he gives something up. But if you're comparing him to Jair Alexander doesn't give up near as many big plays as Kevin King. He didn't last year. His coverage is consistently very good. He also doesn't make near as many big plays as Kevin King. Kevin King was the big playmaker in the secondary last year. He stayed on the field finally. He only played 15 games his first 2 years, less than half of the games. He played 15 games last year. So he's finally on the field. It wasn't a coincidence that he finally made plays, because when he's been healthy and on the field, he's always been a playmaker. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, Kevin King, we can just scoot him along, because he's a really good player when he's healthy, and he's got the potential. If he can just knock out those 1 or 2 lapses a game where he gives up something, he has the potential to be a really, really good player. And that's the type of – if he's able to do this season, to go into the open market with a season like that, it's going to be tough to let him go, because he's going to be one of the better players on their team. Now, they've got other decisions to make, but, yeah, as far as Josh Jackson, he hasn't shown anything like Kevin King has shown. Give him a chance, sure. I mean, he's a guy that was drafted in the second round and certainly has shown ball hawking ability in college in the Big Ten, but the NFL is a different beast, and Kevin King has shown that. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a season that Kevin King has going into the open market, and also how Josh Jackson figures into the overall picture in the secondary.
If Kevin King can put together a similar, if not better, season than he did last season, then he'll be making a pretty good case for himself to either get re-signed by the Packers or get a lot of money somewhere else.
He's going to get paid with another season like last year. I don't think there's any question about that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be live at training camp tomorrow, so make sure you come back over to wherever you're watching us today for yet another Packers News Camp Chat. Also, make sure you're subscribed to PackersNews.com. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. For Ryan, I'm Olivia. We'll see you next time.